Hi, I'm Armin Budish. Welcome to this week's edition of Cleveland Conversations, where we bring you information, the inside information about current issues for the community. Today we're going to be talking about teaching kids to be change makers. Can it be done? Are we doing it? And the answer, I think, is yes to both those questions, but you'll hear from the experts. We're bringing you Dr. Molly Buckley-Marudis, who is one of the leaders of the YPAR program, the Youth Participatory Action Research Program here at Cleveland State. And we have here Kanda Abdullah, who is a former student at Lincoln West School of Science and Health, and she was at the CMSD, Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Now she's at Cleveland State as a student. So I'm pleased that you're both here to join us today. Thank you. Why don't we start with both of you. Molly, why don't you go first? Tell us about yourself. Give us a little information about who you are and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, Armin, for having us. I can't tell you, it's such a pleasure to be here, and really exciting to know that you want to hear more about YPAR and that this work will be able to be shared with the community at large.
And our viewers should know, by the way, Molly is on sabbatical this semester, but she came in specially for this program, so thank you.
Happy to be here. So I'm an associate professor of adolescent and young adult English education here at Cleveland State. I've been here since August of 2012. And I'm in the Levin College of Public Affairs and Education. Most of my research and teaching to date has focused on adolescence literacies, youth-led research, and digital literacies. And a really important and critical part of my life at Cleveland State has been my work as professor in residence at Campus International High School. And together with the principals and teachers, that's where we first started YPAR back in 2017 when the school doors opened.
Great, and I want to hear all about that. But
absolutely.
Let's first let Kanda tell us a little bit about yourself, Kanda.
So I was born in Iraq, Kurdistan, and I came to the United States 4 years ago. That's where I attended Lincoln West School of Science and Health, which is where I got the opportunity to learn about YPAR and work with them to conduct research, which I had a blast and a great time. Thank you for having me here.
Great. Thank you. Molly, let's tell us a little bit about YPAR.
Sure, absolutely. So as I mentioned, my first experience with YPAR was in fall of 2017 when I worked closely with the school leadership and teachers to run our first iteration of YPAR with all ninth graders at Campus International. And for those who may not be familiar, Campus International is on Cleveland State's campus, and it's one of our partnership schools. But YPAR is rooted, it has its roots in grassroots and community organizing, and it is a well-recognized research tradition and framework. And important to the work we do with schools, the idea is let youth be the researchers. So in most, research that's happening at Cleveland State, they're full-time professional researchers, but the idea here is actually to train young people in systematic original research and let the young people conduct research projects around issues that they identify. So we really try to emphasize school issues, community issues, something that's on their hearts or their minds that they want to change.
So they identify the issues, but it's not just a matter of doing research and identifying them. They actually go further than that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And that's YPAR is known for that. It's really a cyclical process, and it is critical that it doesn't just end in the presentation or sharing your findings, but you take action on what you learn. So you figure out from your research, like, oh, gosh, we learned A, B, or C. And then the really important part is to say, how do we change based on what we know? So the final step is always taking action on that, on what you have found. And it's been found to be a really important part for helping young people engage with the community and recognize that they can generate knowledge and that they can be change makers, as you said when we started off, and to develop their voice as agents of change.
So Kanda, tell us, you were involved in a very interesting project was that at Lincoln West School?
Yes.
And can you tell us about what it was you looked at and what you did about it?
So last year, me and my peers, we gathered up, we were like, let's talk about an issue in the community or like school in general. And what we realized was most of us was using transportation. We were using transportation, and we had some issues along the way since we were using it on a daily basis. And that's how we started like considering it as one of the issues that we wanted to mention. The thing is, we didn't want to do an issue that we only had like only a few students had personal like issues with it. What we did a survey with our schools, with our students. We asked them like open-ended questions, and I think that's one thing that I learned from YPAC is while doing surveys. I've done surveys before for my like high school classes, but I didn't really think about the questions. But with YPAC, I was more careful. Okay, the question shouldn't be a yes or no question. Like it should be open-ended. It shouldn't lead to one side. So that's what we did. Me with my team, we did a survey, and we realized there are more students that we thought who had like some issues with using the public transportation.
You designed the questions though for the survey.
Yes, me and my peers, we did design the questions.
And then you gave that to the students who use transportation to get to school?
Yes, yeah.
And
we wanted to get more insight into other students, not only the members of my team.
did you identify issues?
Yes, actually. One of the most common was, especially during the winter, there's a long wait time for like the bus to come. So it's really uncomfortable, like the students get sick. And also we looked at the absence, like how likely are students to skip school because the transportation is an issue. And to be honest, during my research, it gave me an idea. I was like, transportation, like a way for students to get to school, should be the last thing that should be the last thing they should be worried about. Like, so yeah, I think it affected students' attendance for school, as well as, like I said, the long wait time. Another issue was safety. Unfortunately, I think a case happened on the news that students got hurt while waiting for the RTA bus, and we kind of like went on that, how dangerous it is for students to be out in the bus stop for a long time. So these were some.
So I remember
issues.
when the schools made the decision to switch from their own school buses, you know, the yellow school buses.
That's right.
To using the RTA.
Right.
And there were a lot of questions about it when it was first introduced, whether it was going to work and whether it was going to be useful. And you've identified some problems with it.
Yes. So using the yellow school buses was our first solution. So we did some research regarding the RTA, and we were like, okay, why not bring back the yellow school buses? But that's when, and that's why Y Park is great. It doesn't stop with just like the research and then the solution. Sometimes the solution is not perfect and is not practical. So we had
What was wrong with the yellow school buses?
So we had a conversation with the executive director of transportation, Eric Taylor, and we realized it's not that simple just because there are a lot of funding that goes with it. Also, since now students from all around the city can attend any school they want, it's just not practical for a bus to drop off a student from this side, from the west side to the east side. So it was not practical just because the roads are so different and far away from each other sometimes from the school. Also, funding was a big issue.
So
Molly, it was before your time, but I'm thinking the move to away from neighborhood schools, right?
Yes.
So now it's with the school choice, people could be going all the way across the city.
So when Kanda and her team come up with these issues, do you review that? Do you give them guidance as to how to change their questions, how to address change? What kind of input do you have, or do faculty members have?
Absolutely. So one of the, we try to provide support. We work with the teachers. So in Canda's case, we had three teachers at Lincoln West who are full-time teachers. And this is in 4 different high schools around Cleveland. We have full-time teachers who are finding ways to do this work. And so we spend time working with the teachers most of the time, like, okay, what phase are you at right now? How can we provide support? And I do remember the transportation survey. So we intervened right at the survey level to actually not really intervene, but talk through the questions. So for example, I love that you mentioned not to be leading. So one question, it was the question about how safe students felt on the bus. But there hadn't been a previous question to say, do you ride the bus? So for example, just as researchers, we know you need to know a yes, no for who rides the bus, because if you have, 90% say they're not safe, but 50% of them don't even ride the bus. They're just guessing. So that kind of sort of very detailed level.
So I understand that some of the problems that came up were that people who ride the bus aren't all students, and some of those were taking drugs, doing other things that were inappropriate, especially around students.
Definitely.
So you identified those issues?
Yeah, I had a personal experience actually a few times that happened that I was on the bus, not personally for me, but I've noticed and I've kind of like experienced seeing others being verbally abused, and so that was not like a good experience, even though it wasn't toward me. Like, it could happen to any students as well, since everyone can write.
And you alluded to this in one of your prior answers, but you talked about the delays causing safety issues, and there was at least one student that apparently got shot.
Yes, that's
while
right.
they were waiting for the bus.
That's right.
And that's not good. I mean, it was really bad. And
it's a big safety issue, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, you go through this process. You identify the issues, you do the survey, you talk to the students, you figure out. Then what? I mean, can you make some change? I introduced this segment as, can we create change makers, which we all want to see throughout the community in all different areas. And if we can help encourage, help teach students to be change makers, we've done an awful lot for the community. So are you able to be a change maker? Did you learn to do that?
Well, I think that's what's so special about YPOC, because when we do the research, it's different from just any other regular class research. There's actually a possibility that we can make some changes. So what happened, since we had a long discussion with Eric Taylor, we got an update later on after we did our presentation. Right before we did our presentation, we realized that they changed the route of some school buses so it could align with the timeline of students when they go to school and when they're dismissed. So I think that was a really good thing. Also, I think it was one of the CMSD schools, 5 of the CMSD schools, which I don't know the name off the top of my head, they were provided the yellow school buses because the students' population happened to be more close by, if that makes sense. So the idea of the school bus not working because of how distant some students might be, it did not apply. So these were the two improvements that happened because of our research, changing the routes, adjusting it to students' schedule, and adding some yellow buses to a few selected schools.
I don't want to gloss over those, because to me, those are big deals. I mean,
it's huge.
For any person, we have a lot of people that want to make changes in bus routes or in times or in locations, and it's just difficult to get it done. And you actually got it done. Now, Molly, when that happens, do the faculty make the changes, talk to the intervene with this with the RTA people, or is it really the students?
So I want to highlight and praise Condenter team for their work. It really is the students. And I was reflecting on your question in addition to the survey. What I think the role the adults play in this scenario is we know things about who are the stakeholders, right? So who are the Eric Taylors of a given project? And we try to contribute that information, oh, you're doing this kind of study? Do you know this person? Or have you searched the website? Because we have been around longer and we know that there's always a key decision maker. But the goal of YPAR is that the young people talk to the stakeholders and they talk to the decision makers so that they can advocate for change.
And can I add something?
Yes, please.
So we, as students, we often assume that the people who have the authority, they do know what's wrong, like they do know the issue. However, when we talk to Eric Taylor, we realize they weren't really aware of some of the issues that we had. So I think that was a big part. They were like, "Oh, we didn't know there was a big issue. Thank you for bringing that up." So I think it was a new eye-opening thing for me.
One of the things that it sounds like you discovered that is really important is that, you know, the people in the power who are making these arrangements are not out to hurt people. They were trying to do their best.
Definitely.
And they just don't always know how to, you know, what the issues are. And so when consumers of the services let them know what the issues are, they want to make it better, and you help them do that. That's really significant.
It's amazing.
So there are multiple YPAR projects at any given year.
Yes.
And you're overseeing, you and your team are overseeing these projects. Do they all have this kind of great results that Kanda has talked about?
So, to be honest, they do not all end with, I would say, as concrete a set of changes. I think the transportation, it is not an exception. So there are many projects, some from Lincoln West. There are 4 high schools in Cleveland right now, Lincoln West, Facing History New Tech, John Marshall Engineering, and Campus International, who are involved in the Cleveland project. And we have seen really successful changes happen at every school. But some, unfortunately, don't end, you know, they get to that stage and they don't end as positively, which is, we like to think, an important part of change making, right? I mean, we know, I mean, today is an election day, like people, like not all of the things people work for achieve the change that they hope for right away. But it's not a reason to give up. And it doesn't mean it was a failure. It just means we have to maybe find other stakeholders, find other ways to convince people. But there have been many that have. I'm happy to share a couple additional projects, or if we have time.
I want you to do that, but I want to just follow up on that for a minute. I mean, the outcomes are important. You know, being able to change the routes and the times and make it safer for students is very important. But at least equally important, if not more so, is the process, the learning experience that you can make change. Do you feel that this is going to have an impact on you going forward, you know, in other areas? Do you have now confidence in making changes if you feel it's necessary?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think through YPAR, I learned to not just do research and let it stay inside, for example, our team or like our school. Like I said, now I feel more comfortable talking to the authority, like people who actually can make the change. Because right now, I know I learned a lot about how to conduct the research. So I know my research is valuable, like depending on what I would find, I mean, regardless of what I would find. So yeah, definitely it was an eye-opening. And the way that I think about it is I actually picked up some skills, some strategies that I can use from my like academic research coming like from now on, since I'm now in college. So yeah, definitely it was
great.
a big,
And Molly, you offered to give us another example or two.
Sure. So there are many, but one that comes to mind, I'll bring it inside the school building, since the RTA example kind of spreads students' daily lives, but outside. One of the projects I was just thinking about represents a very common theme in YPAR, which is related to young people's mental health. That's something, you know, on a lot of our minds right now. And a large number every year of students try to address this in some way, shape, or form. And this one project was focused on what are the resources available during the school day. Like, we know young people, their mental health is a concern. So what strategies do we offer them during the school day? So their theory was that music therapy, they all believed in the power of music. And they thought having music therapy as almost an in-school club or lunchtime activity could be a really powerful outlet for young people. And so that was their idea and their question, and then working with me, working with their lead teacher, they ended up bringing the music therapy interns from CSU to campus, and they ran a lunchtime music therapy group for a couple years. And
Wow.
the interns brought their instruments, and students were able to bring their lunch and then spend almost an hour kind of, enjoying the benefits that have been documented that music therapy can offer.
So the music therapy was actually going on during those sessions.
Yes, and they had an interesting project because I would call that their action. Like, they made it happen, but then they studied it. Like, so they then interviewed and surveyed the participants, and they deliberately took a range of participants from different grade levels, different educational kind of tiers, so to speak, to be a part of that group, and then surveyed, like, what impact did this have? How did you feel after the hour? How did it, would you recommend this to other students? And they came out positively.
Was there any write-up or something that could be used going forward by other students or by other schools?
Yes, they definitely. I mean, they presented their paper at at the campus conference in May, and they shared it with the school counseling team. I do not know if they shared it outside of their own high school, but it does exist. Their findings exist and could be shared. Their focus, of course, was let's keep it going here for now, which did happen. Has not been reignited since COVID, since the return to the building. But
now, is YPAR just a Cleveland project and just for a few schools in Cleveland, or is it regional or national?
So YPAR is something, I would say it's actually international, happening around the globe. And I'm excited to say Cleveland has really become an incredible hub. We have told all of the project in Cleveland is called Project High Key. And we are not joking when we say that Cleveland has become a real pioneer in doing this inside of schools. So because of its grassroots nature, most of the time YPAR happens outside of school. It's hard to facilitate change making with some of the constraints of U.S. public schools, but we believe it can happen. So we have the Project High Key, which I work with Adam Voigt, who's a fellow colleague here at Cleveland State, and that's happening. That is specific. We're on year 3 here and it's supported by a federal grant in Cleveland Public Schools. And Adam Voigt and I are also collaborating with many others on a statewide project to expand it to 30 districts in Ohio.
Wow.
And then the Campus International project is now on year 7, and the Jennings Foundation has supported that work locally here. That was the project I started 7 years ago.
Well, you should know I had talked to Adam Voigt about possibly doing this interview, and he volunteered you.
Oh, good. And we chatted. He was thrilled Conda could join because he knew about her work at Lincoln West.
You told me about a project, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that occurred in Warrensville Heights School. Is that part of YPAR?
So the Warrensville Heights project, so going back to Adam Voigt's work, and being a hub for YPAR, I kind of need the visual. So Adam, as I was doing the YPAR work at Campus International, Adam has been doing this YPAR work for the same amount of time with the First Ring Student Leadership Institute, which has been engaging students from all over Northeast Ohio in the YPAR work. So the Warrensville Heights group was part of that group. All of these there's a lot of synergy between them and continue to grow. But I had also shared the Payne Avenue, the street beautification project with you, which is another
is that
standout.
The one at Jane Edna
Norma Hare.
I did. Norma Hare, yeah.
Yeah, so that was another, I know we talked a little bit about that one.
That was very impressive. That Norma Hare is the women's shelter for the county. And, why don't you tell us about the project? So
that project, and that stands out because it's sort of an in-school, out-of-school, a really nice bridge of students' interests. But the project originated by the high schoolers really wanted to try to have a better understanding of the lived experiences of displaced youth and women who were living in homeless shelters. And it just so happens Norma Hare is across the street from Campus International Lower School. And it's a really busy street. It evolved into one of the things they learned from the residents at Norma Hare was that it didn't feel like a very comfortable and safe street. Residents need to leave the shelter before they come back in. Like during the day, there was nowhere to sit. And then we took field notes. So we went on a long walk, and we took notes and pictures with the youth researchers, and we noticed there was nowhere to really sit. There were a lot of signs that indicated where not to sit. There were no planters or live, kind of trees. And so the ultimate outcome, the students put together a fundraising video based on interviews and conversations with people from the school and women from the shelter. And they raised money. They pushed this video out, and they ultimately raised money. Their focus was street beautification at that point. So they actually were able to purchase planters that are still, very urban city planters that are still there. And they launched an initiative with local artists to create artwork. That was again a collaboration with the local residents of Norma Hare and students. And there is artwork if you drive down Payne Avenue. You can see the artwork on Campus International and Norma Hare. So it was a real ongoing effort of who are the stakeholders, who do we need to talk to, and how do we work together, which was a really important, and finding spaces to do that.
And the students, again, came up with that project.
Yes.
And identified the issues and
they identified the issues.
Identified resolutions.
And they did all the film work. Purple Film Studios did help out, a local film company, and then they taught a film workshop. So every time we could add an additional, life skill, we did. But that is a real way people make change in the world, right? Making videos and distributing it. And Campus District at the time became a key. Students were able to work with Rachel Oscar at that point to help.
Is there any, when you did your project, was there any cross conversation with students doing other projects like the ones she's talking about? I mean, do students talk together about what they're working on, or is everybody pretty focused on just what they're doing?
I would say for the most part, everyone is more focused on their part. However, I try to have a few conversations about the other teams, but the thing is, the way my school is structured is juniors and seniors are in another campus, the Metro campus, and freshmen and sophomore are in another. So we were about 3 teams. The other 2 were at the main campus, so we didn't really have a chance to meet. We did meet a couple times when we came into CSU, but also during that time it was we were all working on our own. I did have a few conversations, just like the basic idea of what they're talking about, but nothing more.
But there is, if I recall correctly, there's a conference or
you're just making me think of it.
Together.
Yes, I would say, and not to underestimate, I should highlight with YPAR, sharing your work in a conference setting is also one of the ways you disseminate your findings and communicate the results to others. And I'm happy to say, starting in 2018, that very first year of the YPAR work at Campus International, we hosted the first campus conference, and in CSU's Jolka Hall, which was the former College of Education. And this will be the 7th annual campus conference. So everyone comes.
Kenda, with your project, you presented the results? Somebody presented the results?
The one at CSU last spring.
The CSU conference that you told us about?
Oh yeah, we had a big poster when people were coming in, and we talked about the process, the issue, and what solution we thought would be best.
Well, thank you both for coming in. This is so exciting. I can't tell you how much it excites me to hear what you've done in not only accomplishing what you did in terms of transportation, making it safer for students, but the whole process of learning how to make change and building up the confidence to change. And what you and your colleagues are doing here at Cleveland State is so important, because the youth are our future, and we want to continue to make change that improves society, and that's exactly what you're teaching and what you're doing. So I want to thank both Kenda and Molly for coming in and for doing what you're doing, and good luck at CSU this semester.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining us today.